That's right back, Charlie. Definitely.
People, Deluded are back again. Special guest settings. It's not every day, you know, that we're granted by the presence of the Black David Ornstein, you know. Give the guy some love, but what you saying, my guy? You good?
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I'm okay. I'm just like coming out of a cold at the minute, but hopefully my voice isn't too bad. But other than that, I'm all good. Hopefully,
No, you're pushed to, man. You're pushed to, man. I didn't even know that, man. I would have cancelled it if you told me, man. So yeah, my big support is playing through the pain barrier. The commitment is crazy. What shirt is that? Looks weighty.
Ajax.
Okay. You're trying to get the Hatto propaganda going early doors. I hear
it. Yeah, it's quite an old one though. Probably around, I think 99, 2000. That
retro
time.
Boy.
Yeah, that sort of time. So yeah.
I hear you, man. Obviously, I'm probably going to take the smile off your face, man. But we have to, with a close to the Premier League being obviously on Sunday, I want to just really throughout the course of this video, just get your thoughts and everything. The first thing I would say is, obviously, a lot of people are saying Spurs through the game and whatnot against Manchester City. Now the fans can say what they want and they can have their feelings. Personally, I think Postecoglou before the game and during it showed that he doesn't really care about anything else. He wants 3 points. I think the players care because I know football's tribal, but I don't think the Spurs players are sitting there and saying, oh, well, we're stopping Arsenal from winning the league. They get bonuses and all of those kind of things. But where are you at with that, man? I'm sure you've been asked about it.
Yeah, to be fair, I haven't actually properly been asked. Obviously, there's been a few jokes here and there. Personally, I wasn't sure what to think before the game. Obviously, there was a lot of talk, both, I guess, externally on Twitter with fans and stuff, but also, like he said, with Ange, and Ange was very clear in what he thought. And the players, to be fair, watching the game, it seems like they were on the same page. Obviously, everyone's going to kind of talk about that Son moment, but there was also moments in the first half where they're clearing shots off the line and stuff like that, where if they wanted to throw the game, I don't think they would be doing. So yeah, obviously unfortunate that it didn't go Arsenal's way, but there's also the other side of it where Arsenal shouldn't really be in a position where they need to be relying on Tottenham. Anyway, there's a lot that's happened in this 38-game season before that point, which I'm sure we'll get into. So, yeah, I'm not looking at last night as the game that decided everything because a lot happened before.
And you've tied it up perfectly. The first thing I will ask you before we go on, though, was you supporting Spurs?
Nah.
I knew you was a real one. The Black David Ornstein, he's staying true to his roots, man. Because he's a South Londoner as well, man. You know, R.I.P. Rocastle. You know he wouldn't be going for that, man. So yeah, big up yourself for that. But you said it there, and that's something I've been saying. In that, obviously, naturally, I can't say I would support Spurs. There's never a reality where I'll support Spurs. Naturally, if they done us a favor against a team they send to do well against them, we're laughing in these happy days, but I don't think you can have your cake and eat it. We call Spurs serial bottlers. We say all these things about Tottenham. And then in what, is the one of the most defining fixtures currently in the Premier League, you're relying on them. And then you're shocked that ultimately they've not got it done. Football fans have some crazy logic sometimes. But for me, it is what it is. Where would you pinpoint where it went wrong this season? Because I think it's very harsh. You know more than me because it's your job, but record wins, clean sheets, goals, all the metrics, Saliba and Gabriel and many a player doing well, Saka as well. And just Arsenal ticking over. But it's just still not been enough, man. And as you said, it's a long 38-game period. Where would you pinpoint where it went left for us?
Yeah, for me, luckily, I've been writing about this today, so it's in my head.
So I've been making video content around it. Great man, think alike, bro.
But for me, it's the first half of the season. It's Fulham, it's Tottenham, Chelsea, West Ham, Fulham again. Those are the main games where, in moments, I felt that they were just those silly mistakes that cost Arsenal last season crept in again. But also there are some moments where they were a bit passive and they were caught because of that. So silly mistakes being the first goal against Fulham, the
Ramsdale and Saka, innit?
Ramsdale and Saka.
Then at the end,
Yep, Jorginho against Tottenham. Then Raya against Chelsea as well. And then the things that I call more passive, when you think back to the Newcastle game, everyone talks about all the VAR like shenanigans, but Joe Willock's still able to put a cross in when he should be under pressure.
and we didn't create anything, let alone have chances. So there's always things we can control, man.
Yeah, and then similar story, I guess, with Fulham away, where you go ahead, good
Worst
start,
game of the season from us.
and then you just let the game drift. I felt don't heed any of the warning signs that Fulham give you, which I remember 4 times in that first 20 minutes.
Yep.
Fulham's left, Arsenal's right hand side. Fulham are going down that wing, and Arsenal aren't responding, and that's where the equalizer comes from. So those are the kind of moments that I look at as deciding, rather than sitting back, going with, I guess, recency bias, you'd call it, and saying, "Oh, Tottenham this, Tottenham that." It's not Tottenham; it's Arsenal. So that's not to, I guess, take away from what's been a very impressive 2024, as you mentioned. So many records broken and set this calendar year, but I
More
think
wins than the Invincibles this campaign, which shows you how difficult it is to win a Prem these days, man. Really,
yeah. But I think that period is probably where I would kind of what's the right word? I guess it's not blame, but I guess, whew, yeah.
Ultimately, that's where the damage was done, isn't it? Really.
Yeah. I wanted to use the right word, but I'll let your phrase be the one.
Black David Ornstein, we've been messed on the platform. If I had to press you pause for an answer, yeah, like definitely pause. What game is it though? Like, which one is it for you? Because for me, I do understand people saying, the Aston Villa game this year, it's never a good time to lose when you're fighting City. But as you said, 2024 has been great. I can understand it, because I do feel even in this period we currently face, not to, micro pick what we're doing, but sometimes we actually haven't been that amazing in the first half. And I think, being 3-0 up at Spurs' place, it tells you everything. So I understand why people say that. I would point towards the 2 games against Fulham. I would say maybe the North London derby with Declan Rice coming off, and not to pinpoint Jorginho because he's not alone and he's actually done all right for us. I wasn't happy with the first hour at Stamford Bridge, because although we saved the day, big up Trossard and whatnot, it's beggars belief, really and truly. But now that I think about it, and I've been thinking about this the last 24 hours, bro, I would say probably West Ham at the Emirates, just off the basis of the shots and everything we had. And it felt like Arsenal of old, in that we dominate all the metrics, create all the chances, don't put the ball in the back of the net, you don't get 3 points, bro.
True. My mind's still on, I guess, the 2 Fulham games, because you can't really take 1 point from those 2 games. And it's for different reasons. The home game was obviously for the mistakes, but then the second game for that passivity that we spoke about earlier, which I felt was evident even in that West Ham game. Even though there were so many shots, I do also feel a bit like, okay, yeah, Arsenal had a lot of shots, but were they great?
The quality of the shots, yeah.
So, I look more at those kind of Fulham games rather than the West Ham one. But you can have your choice, really.
I mean, had we have just had more, like 3 more points on the board, with me and you be smiling even more, man.
Yeah. I mean, that's probably, I'd say yes, but I can't, maybe attributing it to just one game isn't really what we're doing as well, because
it can't be.
If you attribute it to just one game, then you don't know what happens the game after that, for instance, and what kind of reaction comes from it. But it's those themes, I guess, that are more telling to me.
It's sad because it's that age-old thing of fine margins. You know, the last 2 years we've been great. I can't do the ifs and buts thing, but if
Yeah.
not necessarily Manchester City, but if Pep Guardiola wasn't a thing, maybe we win the Premier League trophy and we've got something etched in history. And for me, that's probably the most bitter pill to swallow, in that we've been great. I always, you know, you do it on The Athletic with all your articles, check them out, people. I do it on YouTube. We're both similar in that we try and find the micro kind of topics and the themes and whatnot. But for me, I do just want to start winning, bro. It's a shame because I genuinely feel like it's an impossible task beating City. Like, you need to probably be looking at 90 odd points. Whether you're able to get that is another thing. But I do feel, and it's a bit harsh for everything we're doing and where we're going, that personally, we kind of shoot ourselves in the foot at times. Now, I'm being very harsh. I like what Mikel Arteta and the boys are doing, but the Chelsea game, Jorginho and Zinchenko is kind of suicidal with the way Chelsea started. Not getting at Jorginho, but when you lose the dynamics of Declan Rice in an open game, there's your issue. Although we've been scoring goals for fun, and I said it in December, more than anything, it feels psychological. It's a very lazy way of looking at things. But had we have had a striker, who knows? And I guess it's just, we need to just keep doing what we're doing the last 2 years and take it to another level and just arguably chase another 6 or so points. What I will say to Pep, if you're here next year, you've done the 4 P's, got 100 points, got the treble. Let your little brother, Mikel Arteta, secure this. And obviously on that, you're not Mikel Arteta, neither am I. And I'm pretty sure we're both happy we're not. But how does he bridge the gap? I say bridge the gap because it feels like City are up here. We was down here last year. We're kind of here. We're still some way off City. But in terms of being competitive, we're that again. But how do we get closer, bro? Like, for you anyways.
Yeah, for me, what's really apparent with it going to the final day of the season is that Man City aren't perfect. Like, they went 4 games without a win in the winter. People don't remember it because they are a machine, basically.
People don't remember they're unbeaten since December as well, to age your point, bro.
Yeah, exactly. So I think when we're looking at it, it's not like it can't be done. Like, Arsenal can still win the league on Sunday. They probably
Where's your optimism? Cut the track. Where's your optimism on that as well before you continue?
I'd probably say like 25%.
Fair enough. Same, man. I'm less than that really for me.
So yeah, I don't think they will do it, but there is a possibility.
Come on, Moisey, man. Remember your former player. Come on, Moisey.
And I guess to the point of the question, where I look at Arsenal and where they can possibly bridge the gap is those preventable goals that they concede, because in that first half of the year, so from match day 1 to match day 19, they conceded goals from 5 errors, or had 5 errors leading to goals, and that was the second most in the league. That can't happen.
We got away with it there, isn't it, really?
that can't happen if you're in a title race. And I think that's a trend that was there last season as well. It's been a bit less apparent this season, especially since the new year. But that's kind of, those are things you can actually fix yourself.
Internally,
So I think less stupid, silly, just completely preventable goals, because a lot of the times teams weren't having to actually work for their goals, which actually makes it even more frustrating. I think. So that's my kind of biggest gripe, I'd say, is the sheer, I guess, simplicity of the goals that they conceded. And that's something that I personally feel is very fixable. And I think there's already evidence to back that up with how the second half of this season's gone.
I think you're bang on the money. I think although we've had kind of a clean run with injuries, kind of typified in Saliba's played every minute up until this point, and he probably will come the end of the campaign. But I agree with you in that, you know, obviously Mikel Arteta knows this, you know, with the greatest of respect to the manager and the players, none of them are world class per se, or the finished articles or legends. So by that logic, you can always work very hard. So I agree with you with a lot of internal solutions. Obviously, we'll get onto it, but the recruitment would help. Obviously, you work in the media, innit? And I guess I do indirectly, but you work in the media. And obviously, I think the media control the narrative. I think with Arsenal, we've always been called a soft touch and lacking resilience. And to be honest with you, a lot of the things that you mentioned with Newcastle, the VAR kind of doing us wrong, there's been several games where there's been moments that's gone against us, but we've just got on with it. Even with Ramsdale making that mistake against Brentford, or to a degree, the Bayern Munich first leg, we've got things going. But one thing that does kind of pee me off is for years, you know, when we more played that pretty silky kind of football and we dominate possession and shot stats, and it was a running joke, you know, we'd have a million chances, they go down the other end, they scored. That was us as a football club. People said when we was doing that, we can't win ugly. Now we're winning kind of ugly of recent. Oh, they want us to be prime Barcelona side. Now, at this point in the season, you can't be that amazing. And I'm not saying we couldn't have played better, but what do you make on our ability to win ugly, or not necessarily in a positive way, put in a 6 out of 10 performance? Because I'm sure Mikel Arteta, and he said it against Spurs and United, he wasn't necessarily happy with how we played. But I like the fact of it, we're just showing basic competence. It's like just turning up to school. We've turned up to school with our pencil case. We're writing stuff down. We're not missing lunch. We ain't got detention. And I think that's what we've done. That's literally what it is. And it's City do that. And it's called professional, bro. Like,
no lines during lunch.
No lines. Just keep quiet. Don't shout. Don't get with the bad kids. When the teacher said it's lunchtime, what would it technically have been? Third, fourth period before lunch in school days. You're behaving. You're gone. You're going to get your chicken mayo or whatever's the best seller in the cafeteria, bro. But where are you at with that? Because I think the goalposts shift with Arsenal Football Club way too much.
So before I get into my, I guess, thoughts on it, I would say to anyone listening, don't pay too much attention to what other people say. Like,
something
even
Arsenal fans need to learn.
Like, just you will have your own opinion. That's okay. If you see other people saying something else, then, and you don't agree with it, you don't have to care about everything everyone says about Arsenal. Over the last couple of years, have grown to care a lot less about what mainstream, even media, is saying. And I know I work within the media, but I don't really care that much because
it's essentially just opinions. Some of it's evidence-based, but essentially just opinions.
And it's not like the world is against you. So you may as well just get on with your day. In terms of my view on it, I feel like Arsenal's ability to, as you say, get results in different ways is probably their biggest asset. And the biggest, I guess, example of that is set pieces, I'd say.
Cash money. We dreamed to play days like this.
So obviously, I guess when we were growing up, obviously you'd hear on commentary, Arsenal are probably easy to get at set pieces, and that can't be said anymore. If it's said, you'd probably get loads of, I don't know, emails, or probably now
you can't say we're a soft touch.
So with that, I guess, transformation, there's also come other ones where, as you mentioned, if Arsenal want to go into a low block, they can do that fine, and they can defend because they're all competent. Very good word that you used when setting up the question. I think the Manchester United game is probably the best example because, as you say, it was a really bad performance in possession, I'd say.
Yeah.
Out of possession, however, everyone was concentrated and locked in when they needed to be. There was a moment where I think Højlund got the ball inside the box and he was trying to back it Gabriel. And then you see Rice and Saliba just come in, and 1 second before that, I'd say it looked pretty open, the situation. But then it just seemed like, oh my God, there's so many yellow shirts around him.
They're just United are just huffing and puffing side to side, and they don't move. And again, going back to competency, one thing I know in football, if you don't move the ball quickly against a well-structured side, you're in trouble. And again, doing our homework, getting our grades, keeping it moving.
So I think you saw a team that knew how to be organized and also how to be concentrated. So that's a really, I think, a testament to Mikel Arteta and his coaching staff to have been able to drill that into an Arsenal side who, say, 4 or 5 years ago, were probably the opposite of that. So, yeah, I think their ability to have so many different ways of approaching a game and taking it in the direction they would like it to go, even if it's not, I guess, their ideal game. I think it speaks volumes to the work that's been done over the past 4 or 5 years.
I think you're bang on, and I feel we need emotion. I can't say Arsenal are not an emotional side because we use that to channel us, and you're seeing us, whether that's us fight back from difficult moments and all of that, those kind of things. But I think we're quite cerebral in a sense of there was a time, even under Mikel Arteta, when we turned up in big games. Like for me, I always go back to, I'm sure it was a few years ago, Rodri scored the winner at the Emirates against us. Yeah. We started blisteringly good. We competed. It looked like we believed we was levels, and as the game went on, it's not that it was diminished, but it kind of was. Now it's like we can take the emotion out of sides. Man United, I know the fans are not the same with the players, but the Man United game, they lost 4-0 to Crystal Palace. Their season's been rubbish. Historical rivals against Arsenal. We took the emotion out. We know that they want to make it an open game. If it's not an open game, which we've actually learned our lessons from the game at the Emirates, because that's one thing off topic I think's been there. Whether we've won, lost, or drawn, there's been certain things we can improve when we've won. And again, you look at the Spurs game. Now, I can't really praise the Spurs performance defensively because it sounds a bit mad because we on another day, kind of messing up that 3-goal lead was mad. But we took the emotion out of sides. And I think us Arsenal fans, including myself, the last 2 games, in them 2 games I mentioned, my emotions were all over the place. I'm sure you're the same. Like you just wanted the 90th minute. But it's like our players can just say, all right, cool. You know what? Our passing is kind of off today. We're not kind of playing with a swagger that we normally do, but we can get something. And again, one luxury I'll give to the players, while you want to see them improving, Arteta's basically said it's the results-driven bit of the season. Man City haven't been the City they've been all season, and they definitely wasn't against Spurs, but they've got 3 points, a clean sheet. Their keeper who came on in Ortega made a big save, and that their players made the difference. So that's kind of what I want to keep seeing for next season. What would you say then, has been the lowest point of you as an Arsenal fan this season, and the highest? I have to, man. It's review settings.
Yeah, the lowest definitely was Fulham away. I was working that game. It was New Year's Eve as well.
Oh man.
And at the start of the day, it was quite sunny out. And then I don't know. Their second goal went in, and all of a sudden the rain just started pouring.
A bit like United, didn't it? When we beat them.
I was like, oh my God, what is going on? And that was a moment where I think, when you're just kind of sat there, just looking into the distance, like, what is my life?
You're there, but you're not there. So it's a real experience kind of thing. Yep. Yeah. That's how I felt when Xhaka threw his shirt down at the Emirates many years ago. Man.
Oh yeah, I remember that as well. That was very surreal.
That was surreal. I was like, we're a pantomime of a football club at this moment. So shout out to Mikel Arteta for that, man.
And at that moment, obviously, I was working, so I had to write about it as well. And I looked at the table, and I think Arsenal were 4th at the time. Liverpool were 1st. I think City and maybe Villa.
I think Liverpool have been on top the longest point of this season. So if anyone's bottled it, it's them. They said it with us last year. Hey, we'll get the excuses out early.
Yeah. But at that point, Arsenal had lost 4 and drawn 4 games. And I was looking at the next, say, I think it was 20 or 21 games. And I was like, oh my God, like, surely they're going to lose, like, even more.
They could get peak,
But since then, they've only lost 1 and drawn 1.
And that's the saddest thing about this, like the saddest thing, like, bro, if you saw the way my phone was ringing up yesterday, you would have thought we lost yesterday. Like, Arteta has raised the standards of this club so much, bro.
Yeah, so that was definitely, I guess, the lowest point, because I just thought, oh, it's kind of done. But thankfully, I was very wrong. Highest point. That's a good question. I might need time to think. Do you have one in mind?
Do you know what? Lowest point for me, unpopular opinion, Bayern Munich, going out against Bayern Munich, just because it felt like, of course, I think we've given a quote unquote good account of ourselves against Bayern Munich. We never got embarrassed. It's it's for a lot of these players and the manager. We're back in the big time. Some of them haven't been there. So there is a sense of pride, but kind of the theme what we was talking about errors and things like that. I do think as much as we've progressed, obviously in the Champions League, it's creme de la creme, and you see what experience does, and you see the fine margins. So I would say the second leg, because I just felt it was like a microcosm or a combination of the 2 kind of games. So it sounds mad, which again, Arteta's bringing the bright days if I'm crying about losing to Bayern Munich. So I would say that. Do you know what? I would say lowest point, I would say Bayern Munich. I'd probably say that I'd probably say Fulham away, because I think that's our worst game of the season, give or take, between West Ham away in the League Cup. I would say most frustrating would probably be the first 60 minutes against Chelsea. I thought that was quite terrible. Highest point, probably just every game in the top 6. Like, it's been spot on, really and truly. Like, do you know what? Highest point beating City. Like, when last we beat City, the Emirates, bro.
Yeah, I think either that or the Liverpool game.
Even there as well. But I'm accustomed to us beating Liverpool, man.
Yeah.
Of course, like, City unheard of. 2 clean sheets, bro.
Yeah.
Madness.
Well, no, I think just thinking back to the time, I think it's very easy for people to forget, I guess, the circumstances.
Yeah, it was doom and gloom. And gloom. Sorry.
A lot of the talk, like, ahead of that game was it's win against Liverpool or bust, and for Arsenal to show up the way they did, so quick out of the gate as well. It was a very dominant performance, and I think, that whole 90 minutes, aside from, again, another silly goal given away right before half time, I think that game was a real big one mentally, which I think the Liverpool home game last season was as well. So I think in terms of, giving the squad, the fan base, whoever, anyone, I guess, involved with Arsenal, a bit of a second wind or a little jolt.
Man, kick up the arse, really, in a positive way.
Yeah, I think that might have been the highest point as well.
And it's weird, because I know history isn't going to be kind, because at the end of the day, history is only written by the victors. If, as everybody knows deep down, even Arsenal haters, that are all we got people celebrating celebrating L's, people that we've also beaten celebrating other L's. That is crazy what we're doing. As a football club, we're angry in some of the games we don't win, so it shows everything. Yeah. But I know history won't be kind. Agendas have got to run. But for me, kind of what you said there, and it put a brain spark in my head when people did say against Liverpool, it's doom and gloom if you don't win, which naturally that's valid. But they said that against Spurs, against Chelsea, against Man United, against all these teams. And we've coped with it, which for years we haven't. And we've coped with it and kept it moving, which is why I'm kind of still upset that this might not. I can't say it doesn't amount to anything, because it's all a learning curve and a trajectory. But there's no Emirates parade, man. Like, it's upsetting, man. I had it planned. I had the props planned. I had my content planned. It's unfortunate, man. I was gonna order a cigar and whatnot. It's crazy. So I guess, with it, obviously, with us obviously playing Everton, before we get into the Everton game, I can't imagine too much is going to change in your thoughts with what I'm about to ask you, even because it's irrelevant. First thing I want to ask you, who do you give young player of the season to?
Oh, young player. That's a good, I guess, question. Oh,
I tried to help them out because I thought if I do player and then young, maybe two people.
Yeah. Wow. Let me just look at the squad quickly, because it's hard to remember who's young, because they all are.
Yeah. They're all young, very young still.
Oh, I've got a name in my head, and it's because I don't know if I'm gonna give him player.
Go with what you feel, man. Go in the moment, bro.
All right, young player. I'm gonna go with Saka. Does that count?
I was gonna do that as well. So it's slightly it's a cop out, but we can run it in it. Like, I hear it. It's slightly shameless. It's cool though. Like, it's slightly shameless, but I mean, we're doing that. I was gonna go with that as well.
He's 22 years old.
He's 22. People said he's got underwhelming season. He's busting all these statistics. He's ultimately dying by the high standards he set. It's shameless, but I've got Saka as well, bro.
So I think we can't, I guess, forget in that first half of the season, things weren't really clicking. Really,
we couldn't create, let alone convert chances.
And he was the one who stood up time and again. When people are saying, "Okay, where's the output?" He was providing the output week in, week out.
They don't want him to score pens.
A point, yeah. He was getting Arsenal a point when they needed him to. He was getting them 3 points when he needed to as well. So
consistent,
it's another season of like very good consistency from him. But yeah, I'm not sure if I would give him player of the season. So yeah, that's why I've gone with young player.
It's shameless, but you're right, man. I think sometimes, obviously, like every player, Saka has had some, down times and stuff, but more often than not, the man's performed. Sometimes I think there's been games he's played better in where he hasn't scored or assisted. So he can keep doing what he's doing, and I'm absolutely happy for him. Ultimately, he's down by his high standards. As much as I like our squad, I would describe our attackers as very volatile. Like, they all can put in consistent performances. But I said it last year and I'll say it this year coming, and I'll say it again now. In August, out of all the attackers, and that's not to discredit anyone, we've actually got some good footballers. Saka is the only one that I could bet my life savings or my life that you're going to get double figures because you've shown me enough. The rest, if you do it like like what Odegaard and Martinelli did last year, I think you've got the capacity to, but I'm not expecting it, if that makes sense. Shout out to Kai Havertz as well. But and that's actually what I want to see eradicated next season, in that probably not, but I want the best of all worlds. I want Trossard, Martinelli to get back to his form, Jesus the same, Kai Havertz to do what he's doing, Saka to do what he's doing, and for a winger and a striker to get to do their thing as well, really. But that's for another part of this. Who would you give player of the season then to?
So I've had one name in my head for the past 2-3 weeks, and now we're getting closer to the end. I'm getting like
closer. We're at the end, mate.
Well, yeah, basically.
Unless you're hoping that we win the Premier League and there's a twist.
But yeah, now we're here. I'm like kind of second guessing myself. But the player that's been in my head for the past 2-3 weeks has been Martin Odegaard. I just think the consistency, like week in, week out, has been absolutely ridiculous, especially when you consider the job he's actually asked to do, because it's not a selfish job. Pretty much everything he does is
very selfless.
Yeah, everything he does is for other people around him. And yeah, I think from, say, December onwards, every game, apart from the United game, I would say, he's shown up.
Still sent Amra back to the shops.
Yeah.
Still spinning,
So yeah, he's being, I think, a player who creatively has gone to a different level, because he's just playing as if he's on the playground and he's just trying things out. And that's, honestly, he's been my favorite player to watch throughout.
He's the most enjoyable Arsenal footballer to watch with a ball at their feet, without a doubt.
He honestly, so West Ham away, there was a moment. There was a moment where he shifted the ball, like he does that little
that Odegaard shift. Yeah, no one can replicate that.
I almost screamed in the press box. Like, there are times where he makes.
He's breathtaking, isn't it? Like, he's everything you would like for us that are more Wenger babies. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Everything that typifies what Arsenal is. Like, for me, with a ball at his feet, he's the most respectfully to his teammates. I mean, a fit Gabriel Jesus is very enjoyable to watch because of the Brazilian stuff, but Odegaard is different class. I do admit, though, I do think he is a candidate for player of the season. I just feel, when I was cheating a bit and getting these questions for you, we're tending to be a bit biased towards the attackers, myself included. Obviously, people paid to watch them, but player of the year, do you know what? I think it's a tie, man. I'm going to have to say Big Gabriel. And don't big up Saliba as well. He could have won young player. But I would say it's either Gabriel or Benjamin White for me, because as defenders, naturally, you're not going to get the credit. And people get onto Gabriel about the bozo moments. You know, the other day, was it Spurs? There was a game where he was a bit shaky, but generally, he's been great. And there's been times that he's carried Saliba, and that's what teammates do. Benjamin White, I mean, Gary Neville's eating his words, in it. He's gone from criticizing him to his player of the season. And you know what? Southgate, if you don't call him up, I don't know. So I think it's a tie, man. I have to give it to Gabriel Benjamin White. I don't feel right, man, with that, man. So you've gone Saka for young player, obviously Odegaard for player of the season. I've gone Gabriel / Benjamin White. Underrated player of the season.
Underrated, I'd probably say Saliba. And just before we go on that, the reason, say, Gabriel wasn't in my thinking is because I gave him my player of the season last year and also my player of 2023 for the calendar year. So I feel like
you've pushed the PR enough now.
Well, no, I'm not calling it that. I've been appreciative of Gabriel for a while. But with Saliba, played every minute of the Premier League so far this season.
Man of the match and bare away grounds as well against the top six.
Almost every game in the Champions League as well.
That's been the only time I feel he showed his age, really, in the champs. That's the only time he's looked normal, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think he was nervous in the second leg against Porto and first leg against Bayern. that's where I felt, yeah, I can see your age.
Yeah, exactly
but,
that.
But for the most part, I think he's been very understated in what he's done. Even though he has made, I think, the most last-ditch tackles in the league, like the one against
Bro,
Garnett.
when my man makes them
Um,
slide tackles, bro.
he had
The Crystal Palace one at the start
yeah,
of this season, this guy is different.
he makes those tackles, but he doesn't have to do it too often.
He
And
doesn't want to tackle in a good way. That's the last option.
a lot of his work is just composure, basically. So I think he's probably, if I could say underrated player of the season, I would go with him. One player I wanted to mention as well is obviously Declan Rice. Not underrated, obviously. Everyone talks about him every week.
I mean, you ruined it because I was gonna say signing. I was gonna say signing the season.
Sorry, okay.
Soon, man. You ruined it.
Let me show up.
You ruined it. See,
Sorry.
Black David Ornstein, they start breaking news about Waters, and you see what I'm saying, people, like they're big time now, but he's ruined it. But no, man, like signing of the season, I will go with Declan Rice as well. I only asked underrated player, because I agree with you with Saliba. I do feel a bit like Saka that when you're so amazing, people kind of get used to it, kind of thing, especially with Saliba. And because we're quite boring defensively, it's not like all man's to the pump, it's last ditch defending. It's for me, it's the sexy defending, it's the defending from the front foot and all the tactical stuff Arteta is doing and things like that. Underrated player though, I've got two to mind, man. I would say Trossard, just because I always call him a super sub, and it's not that it's disrespectful, but it does feel disrespectful because there's been times he deserves more starts, and to have 12 league goals or something like that, where I think you definitely get rotated out a lot more than Saka, and you haven't been first choice from a starting perspective all season, really, ahead of Martinelli. You've done your thing, and you've obviously had some really, really standout moments. He technically bagged in the champs again. I'm sure he bagged against Porto and Bayern, saved us against Chelsea, bagged against United, put the final nail in the coffin against Liverpool. So I have to hail up Trossard for that. I still maintain I think he's the best finisher at the club. But underrated player, I have to give it Kai Havertz, because I can't give you signing of the season because Declan Rice. But like, who would have, even Kai Havertz's supporters, like, you couldn't have seen this. Big up Arteta for putting him up front. Let's dead the centre-mid experiment. It's cool now. It's cool, Arteta. It's cool. Like, let him keep playing up front. But yeah, I'd give you underrated player of the season, Kai Havertz, because who would have seen this? The only thing I was peed off with Kai recently was him saying he's going to be a Spurs fan, really. And Saliba did the same, man. I hope they're talking about NBA. So like, yeah. Let me get an unpopular opinion of the season then.
Oh, okay. I have to think a little bit.
I don't know if they're unpopular, but I've got two.
Okay. Let me just bring up the squad quickly, just so I can rack my brains.
Take your time, my guy. For me, unpopular opinion of the season, I got plenty, man. Like, keep the faith in Martinelli and Gabriel Jesus. Kai Havertz, keep doing what you're doing, but we still need a striker.
Yeah.
And we will not win a Premier League title unless we address midfield. They're the ones I'm dying on.
Okay. Unpopular opinion.
I should have sent him the prep for this video, people, man.
No, it's cool. It's cool. I'm just looking at these players, man. To be fair, I don't think this is unpopular, but I'll say it anyway, because it's a genuine feeling. Mikel Arteta has gotten better with using his squad, but still has room for improvement, I feel, in terms of preparing the players he's going to use, and doesn't trust, like he does, say, Trossard, so that they are in a good rhythm to actually make an impact when they're called upon. Because there have been too many moments where, say, they come on and they look like they've come on cold. And it is something I asked him about. He didn't really give a straight answer.
He might have been peed off when you asked him that, man.
It was when I asked him that question, and he gave the response about Reece Nelson scoring against Bournemouth, and how apparently nobody remembers if he started or came off the bench.
I think we could all remember him as Smith Rowe came off the bench, because I remember Smith Rowe got an assist. It was a dodgy header, but I'm shameless.
Yeah. Like
I'm ashamed.
So yeah, I think anyone who follows Arsenal knows he came off the bench. So yeah, I'd say, yeah, my unpopular opinion is Mikel Arteta is still a young coach who still has room for improvement in how he uses his squad throughout the season.
I would also say, you know what? The fact that we're not in the FA Cup final is an absolute shocker. I know we played Liverpool, but I've done a few videos with you, and I'm still going to maintain. You know, since Mikel Arteta, as much as I love him, since we won that FA Cup, I feel we've been embarrassing ourselves, man. That is our trophy, man. And especially with United being rubbish, us two are the record holders for that. We could be running in front. And I know people would say, oh, it's only the FA Cup. But had we have been in the final, you know, who better to play City at Wembley than us? It might have put a bit of glossing on a disappointing season, if I'm completely honest with you. So, yeah, man, I don't think you can disagree with what you said about the subs. What do you make of the players' futures, like, in your opinion, as a fan then? Because, you know, Fabio, before we get onto the Highlanders in particular, but, you know, Fabio Vieira's a forgotten man. You know, many people want Zinchenko gone. I think many people are, you know, moved back and forth with Thomas Partey. Gabriel Jesus isn't exactly adored at this moment. Where are you at with the players that are out of form, out of sorts, or potentially just not in the strongest 11 currently?
Yeah. So with these players, I guess my mind comes to what do they actually bring to the team? And the one player who's the biggest example of that is Tomiyasu, because I remember, because I was writing something on him, like in preparation for when his contract was signed. And I remember when obviously I guess reports of talks about the contract came out, there was a lot of backlash on Twitter. I saw
For
Tomiyasu getting a new deal. Yeah,
and people say Mikel Arteta ain't raised the standards. Like, it's crazy.
But it wasn't because of him as a player. It was because of
the
his
injuries.
state.
Yeah, that's why I think he hasn't got the length of contract that other people might have as well.
Yeah.
Personally,
yeah. But with him, I always felt I'd say, I guess after Ben White, probably best fullback at the club.
I can't lie, I'm saying Timber.
Well,
Sample
yeah,
size is poor.
the reason I haven't said his name is because
Our people we've seen on a consistent basis.
yeah.
What? No Kirill?
No.
I'm being shaded. People say I hate Kirill in it, so I'm trying to give him his props, man. Mind game.
To be fair, with Kirill, I think he done well when he filled in. It's
Did
just
very
the fact
well.
that there's always one moment in a game where he'll get spun. Always.
I think people are harsh when that happened against City, though. To be fair,
to be fair, it is quite harsh, but when it happens 2, 3, 4, 5 times, it's like
the poorest game I've seen from Kirill recently would probably be the Bayern Munich game, man. But pick him up.
Yeah, big up, because I do actually.
I like him. I like him. It's a shame he can't play centre half because you know you got Gabriel next to you, but it is what it is.
But with, say, you said Vieira,
Zinni,
I don't know what happens, like, because
you forget he's there sometimes, and he's a good player, which is sad.
A good player. And what kind of sticks in my mind is when Arteta talks about relationships and connections, he's always talked that up. And we've seen it in flashes, especially at the start of the season. Again, something people may forget. He was keeping Kai Havertz out of the team.
Him and Eddie Nketiah were probably our best players in August, if I'm honest.
So those are things I can't really forget. And when I look to next season, I think if I'm talking about using the squad better, that's something I'm talking about. Actually give them proper minutes to show what they're about. Which I get is a lot harder to do in the second half of the season when every minute of every game needs to be perfect. But yeah, with him, I'd say probably just keep for at least the first half of the season. When you get to January, you might need to reassess that. Who else is there? Zinchenko.
Jesus, Thomas Partey.
Yeah, Zinchenko's an annoying one because, and I'm sure you've had these conversations like throughout the season, everyone knows what he brings to the team, but defensively, he's not
a liability,
good enough.
If I'm honest.
He's not good enough. And it gets frustrating when it happens time and again, like it was happening I think Wolves at home, Villa at home,
Nottingham Forest away, where it's like
Forest
Ben White wanted to
away.
beat him up. I think people are harsh on him against Aston Villa, though. I'll be really honest. Like, I think
I
people
don't
are very
know.
harsh on them.
I just felt Aston Villa was one where if you track your man and don't ball watch, that goal doesn't happen.
Yeah.
But I'll be quiet. So he's one where, okay. Oh, I'd like to see what Timber can offer and then make a decision.
Zidane can stay part of the squad for me, but if certain offers get made, the very fact that he's won the Prem like 3-4 times,
Yeah.
2 years left on his deal, and I'm sure the club know how long he has on his
Yeah.
contract. But considering the pace we've been in signing new deals, not the young Highlanders, the fact that Zini hasn't signed one, that kind of tells me the club might be undecided potentially with Zinchenko, man. If I'm honest, where you at with Jesus then?
Yeah, it's obviously a similar kind of story with Jesus, although where I'm coming from is, I think, quite similar to you, where I really love watching him play football when he's confident, when you can see he's happy.
Because he's fully fit, like.
When he's fully fit as well. But that's been the main question mark this season. And obviously Arsenal, despite what Arteta said in the press conference, are like, if an offer comes in, okay, we'll look at it kind of thing.
Naturally.
So yeah, he's one that I can understand, especially if you think about that front line and say, okay, yeah, Havertz has done really well in 2024, but if you want another kind of profile up there, you have to make funds available, and not just funds, but spaces as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would be quite, I guess, a bitter one to take when you consider how much both him and Zinchenko elevated Arsenal when they first came in. Honestly, that first 6 months of last season were...
This is what I'm saying. Unforgettable.
Yeah.
Now he looks like Lacazette, but I hope he can get some surgery. Like, I think people forget, if anything that can save Jesus, the Champions League is where he's done his best work, even up to his little cameo against Bayern Munich. At the end of the day, it's about what you're doing, not what you've done. And he's not in our strongest lineup. But I do think he's warranted frustration. I understand it. The man's been injured. He's not been himself. We're looking good without you. This is the nature of the business. But I think he's warranted a bit more persistence. And I again, like you said, if offers get made that we can't turn down, it is what it is. But he's not someone I would actively force out. I think he could do something here. Go on.
And with him, it's 5-year contract he signed, so he's still got 3 years left on it. Like, okay, another year, and you can actually properly think about it, I'd say.
He needs that surgery, though.
For this summer, priority is surgery, of course.
And that's obviously going to maybe impact the start of the season for him personally.
Yeah. But yeah, need to properly take care of his body to allow him to do what he does best, which is playing football like a freestyler, basically.
I think you're bang on the money, man. So the Highlanders, man, obviously we've all seen your article. Young Waters is cutting. I don't know what's happening with Koza Dewberry personally. Without getting into it, if I was him, I ain't played that much. Nelson's ahead of me. Talks of wingers coming in. People can play other places. A lot of interest. I wouldn't say he's wasted a season, but you need to be playing senior football. I might be following my dog Waters out the door personally, but without getting into the younger players like Smith Rowe and Ketty and Nelson, man. Like, I would save Smith Rowe out of all that. Big up Nelson, shout Eddie. Smith Rowe's the one that can't leave, man. Can't go, bro.
We're not just on the same page. We're on the same, I guess, paragraph. We're on the same
yeah. We're reading from the same script, man. Like, maybe we're too emotionally invested in this.
But I mean, we all see what's going on. Like, that left 8 position still needs solving. Like, and
properly.
Luton, what happened after Luton was really disappointing from my point of view, because he came in cold, but still played well. Not amazing, but I think I'd say he did enough.
Step in the right direction.
Played 80 minutes, even though that's probably a bit too much for him at that point because of the lack of, I guess, preparation for that in terms of minutes played. And then after that, he goes almost 3 weeks without a single minute being played, and it's just a bit like,
what's going on here? And on one hand, I get it, because at the end of the day, it's just about 3 points. But on the other hand,
but
Arteta, come on, man.
So if I could, he would be the one out of those 3 I would keep, because again, we've spoken about it time and again. Other than Erdegaard, I'd say he's the most Wenger type player in that team, and I think Luton showed that all he needs is a platform, really. With the other guys, I think, say with Eddie in particular, I would understand it if both him and the club felt it was probably time to part ways, because he turns 25 in a couple of weeks.
Getting on a bit, man.
And he's not the best striker in the world, but I think if he was at say a mid-table Premier League club like a Palace,
you get a Solanke season from him.
He is someone who can give you double figures, I believe. If he does get that run of games, he hasn't been able to get that since August, basically. So yeah, for the sake of his own career, and also it would help probably Arsenal financially. I wouldn't be surprised if that happened. But again, he's one in a very similar situation to Jesus, where he signed a 5-year deal in 2022. So he's got another 3 years left on his contract.
And you're earning peas. And you're England international now as well. So hey, it's different. It's different. Yeah. And that's the weird one with Eddie, man, because I do think that people are a bit harsh on him. I get it. We've had Ian Wright. We've seen Aubameyang in recent years. We've had Thierry Henry. Obviously, he's wearing the number 14. But one thing I like about him, he's very realistic about his role. He clearly knows he's not the best. But if I get a chance, take it. There has been times in the last 2 seasons previously to this year, he's shown he can, hold his own in a degree. He is a Haylender. He did score a hat-trick. He has been called up by the country. There's a lot of things to like about him. But in terms of general play, you don't have what the other options have. And, you in your youth days, you was a prolific goal scorer. But your data or your sample size in the professional game is quite poor, really. And if I'm honest, sometimes this is the end of the journey for you. It's just the beginning for your footballing career, but it's just the journey, and you're not going to get another England call up persisting like this. So it's a bit harsh. I think Nelson's in a similar boat where you look at the bench. The minute other players came fit, you're not involved. I think Arteta likes him and whatnot, and he told you about nobody remembers when he came on and whatnot. But he's good. And that takes me back to what you were saying about the squad. One thing that out of all the things I've heard Mikel Arteta say throughout the year, bro, for me, it's when he said we've got one of the finished squads. Now, I get it. I understand it. I understand it's a process. But you've been here for a minute. Exactly. And there's players there. And you're smart enough. Like, I praise you for your foresight and learning from hindsight. So you're too smart for that to be a coincidence. I'm of the belief generally. I know you trust everyone in the squad. They're here for a reason. But 12, 13, 14 tops players that are really trusted. I kind of want to take that into about 20, because like every fan, I want to compete for everything, if I'm really honest with you. Obviously, many people say, a striker wouldn't go amiss, another winger wouldn't go amiss. You alluded to that left 8 being like a free-through at this moment in time. Obviously, I'd like to get all of them, and I'm sure you're the same. But if you had to invest significantly in one area, which one would you go for?
For me, it would be support for Saka / Martinelli. So wide. If he's not using Reece Nelson, if he's not giving minutes to Cozy Dewberry,
lol.
Like, what's happening? Because
this is it. That's why you might as well run Jesus there. People can say they want about Jesus. Was he not right wing against City when we won at the Emirates?
He played really well in that game.
Yeah, but he didn't score, so no one cares.
Sorry, my cold.
I'm shameless when it comes to backing my players, man. I can't lie. You can see I got favorites.
I think obviously with Havertz, and I think my colleague Amy wrote about this a couple of weeks ago. His performances obviously have changed some thinking a little bit in regards to recruitment up front, because he plays so much better there than in midfield. And then when we, look at that midfield, Jorginho signed an extension. Declan Rice has shown he can play as an 8. Maybe he's not as natural as other candidates, but he can play well there. So yeah, I look at those wide areas and say, okay, now we're season 5 into Saka, I'd say. He's still
It's mad, isn't
22.
it? Crazy.
And he's getting kicked every game.
His shin the other day, it took someone like you can see the white meat pause on his shin. It's crazy. I had to say to myself, I had to say that one was bad.
But I mean, he still had a plaster on it for the United game. I don't know if you saw, like,
see what I'm saying? They won't stop until his leg's broken. God forbid that's never the case.
So yeah, I think support for those guys, and you see that Trossard's probably the best example of what support for players can do. Gives them a rest, but not only that, like if they're not in the best of form, you have someone else to step up, and it helps the competition as well. So I'm not saying Saka would be someone who'd get dropped or anything like that, but someone to just push him, I think.
Helps the collective. You're right. You're
Yeah.
bang on the money.
So that would be where I would kind of look.
For me, I hear that. I don't think you're wrong at all. I don't think calls for a striker are wrong at all, because although we've scored goals, there's been periods where you've probably needed an organic, natural goal scorer that can just put the ball in the back of the net, which you could argue is the hardest thing to do in this day and age. I'm going to say central midfield, man, just because we're getting the spine. Like, you know, and obviously we've had some injuries at left back, but if Timber's there, you've got Benjamin White, Gabriel and Saliba. Raya in line with the modern day keeper stuff is there. We've been bigging up Odegaard throughout the stream. Declan Rice has been a revelation. The three-man trio in midfield could be complete with that left eight. The nucleus of our squad is complete. So for me, I need to see central midfield purely because big up Jorginho, he's done well. And I'm not saying this to be disingenuous, but I genuinely think he's played more than Arteta would have hoped for owing to Partey's injuries. Partey, that's for another hour, really and truly. Quality player. I know people are onto him for the United game, and he definitely made my heart drop when he tried to drop his shoulder. It scared me. I think it scared everyone. But to be fair, a lot of players had stray passes in that game.
Yeah.
But we're going to keep saying this. Obviously, we're going into the summer. I'm sure you and your colleagues will be writing about Partey's future. He's someone that not even people that don't work for the Athletic, they'll just be getting free clickbait off him. But the jury's out there. The jury's out with Jorginho. I love Smith Rowe, but hasn't grabbed that 8 role. I love Fabio Vieira and what he can do in theory. Has not grabbed that. I need someone that can grab that, if I'm honest with you, and take us to the next level. So I'd go central midfield, man. I'd go central midfield. Wing or striker? Top striker. Isak or like, I don't know. You can get Isak up front, like, or a top winger.
What before you said Isak, like
I have to do the mind games, man.
Yeah, my mind was made up, and then you said Isak. Because all intents and purposes, I think a wide man would probably be my preference, and the reason for that is for all the talk around goals, that's not been Arsenal's problem.
It's not been our problem. We've got like 80 odd in the league, 100 odd in all comps.
It's Arsenal's most goals scored in a single Premier League campaign this year.
From all different kind of varieties as well. People can't underestimate set pieces as well.
So I personally, look at where does this team need to actually develop more, and that's obviously what I explained with the wide stuff.
Fair, to be fair.
But
that's a fair point.
With Isak, I'm not sure if it would happen this summer, but he's someone. Again, we talk about Erdegaard, we talk about Smith Rowe. He's a very Arsenal Wenger style.
The number 14 is there for you, Isak. If you want it, don't worry about who's got it now. Even
when he was at Sociedad, I remember doing a video elsewhere, and we were talking about the targets in January 2022, and it was him and Vlahovic.
And people saying they're following his car. His car's in London. Crazy.
Yeah. And I was asked, I guess, which one would be my preference. And Vlahovic, his numbers were a lot better than Isak at the time. But what kept me and the word I used was intrigued about Isak was the way he moves, very Arsenal-like, and just the way he finishes as well is very calm and collected. Even though at that point in time, he didn't have the greatest numbers, he was someone who seemed very Arsenal. And I think he's proven that since he's gone to Newcastle, because his game's not changed, really.
Just a bigger platform. I say bigger, just Premier League, there's more eyes, I guess.
Yeah, so I think he's probably one you're looking at maybe next summer, hopefully, rather than this summer. But I would love it if it did happen one day.
You having Bruno Gomares? Oh man, don't tell me you're one of them.
What? No, I'm not. I'm not like one of them. making me sound like a. Actually, I
We
won't
need,
say
we
what I
need
was
a scut. We need a scumbag, man. He's that in it. Like he's that.
The thing is, like, I'm just not accustomed to it. Like,
Oh, don't
I know
forget
we've got.
Patrick Vieira and these guys
Yeah,
were not nice, man. They weren't
yeah, I
nice.
know, and we got him Ben White, to be fair, or Benjamin.
Yeah,
I
Ben
should
White
say.
and Kai are probably the biggest shit
Yeah,
houses we have.
yeah. And to be fair, what's been, I guess, the really
Gabriel underrated as well.
positive sign of Kai Havertz is there was a point, I think, around the Porto game where he started to play like he was pissed off. And I
Pushing
really
the
liked
managers
that.
and whatnot.
Yeah. And I really thought that's when you could see he was confident in himself. But yeah, Guimaraes, I guess, to be fair, like he's a good player.
Bloody good
And
footballer.
and I guess it just allows for more discussion about how you use Declan Rice as well. Could go double pivot if you want. Could move.
That's why I want him, because they
Yeah.
both could do the 8s and the 6 thing. Now,
Yeah.
probably Gamara's would probably be a bit deeper and Declan Rice could venture forward. But
Yeah.
that I actually think Arteta might go for one of them kind of. When I say hybrids, I use that
Yeah.
term subjectively, but I think Gamara's has got that. I don't think we'll get Douglas Luiz, but I think Douglas Luiz has got that. I wouldn't really want to see him in the 8 role, but I think Everton's Onana, who's been linked with us, kind of possesses that as well. So I actually think that's where we might go. I don't know really, man. But I know for me that midfield needs to be addressed properly, man. Like I like the midfield options on paper. I like bringing in the Zuba Mendes and Gomares and all of them. But I need Odegaard and Rice to have that midfield trio complete. And it's nothing to do with them. We're just one piece short of the puzzle. It's like when you go McDonald's, we just need that one last lottery ticket to complete the Monopoly thing, man. It's crazy. Where you at with the strikers, man? Like finally, like because obviously you've just spoken about Isaac. Like just humor us, you know. We've been linked with Gyökeres, Sesko, Zertsky. Where you at with them three, and which one would be your choice?
Isaac would.
Easy doors, in it. Yeah, easy. Same, really. I didn't always rate him. I thought he was a good player, but I didn't always rate him. I think during what Euros was it? There was a Euros. He just looked too raw. Now I'm a fan. Gyökeres, I like what he's doing at Sporting. I like Zertsky's playmaking. His goal scoring don't stand out.
Yeah,
I think Sesko might be the one. You know, he just looks like he could be a cyborg.
I think Sesko is probably the one I've watched the least, if I'm being totally honest. I think obviously Gyökeres is clinical. Like he reminds me of a like a typical striker from like the 2000s.
Throwback,
Something like
traditional 9.
Just bags. But I think we've spoken about this before. Do those situations pop up at Arsenal? I don't really know.
We're playing lower mid blocks. You need to be able to do the general plating, which Gyökeres can, to be fair. But that is a factor I think's lost. I just think Sesko's got it all, man. I can't say he's a blank canvas because although he's 20, turning 21 or 21, turning 22, you're obviously playing Bundesliga football. But I think in terms of this high level, you've got the solid foundation to be an impressionable blank canvas for Mikel Arteta. You can play wide. He does make a variety of runs. He does drop in defensively. I think he's 6'5" as well. So then there's a lot of height. And again, it sounds football's gone crazy, but so it sounds silly to say 60 million is not a lot of money. But where you're looking at, and I'm not saying we shouldn't go for an Isaac or etc. But if the budget is, we kind of got to be cute and clever. 60 million versus probably 100 for Isaac. Osimhen's 100 odd. Gyökeres, they're in a very strong position. They just bought the lad. Zertsky could be Sesko could be someone that could allow us to spend funds elsewhere. I don't expect us to bring everybody in or get rid of everyone. But for me, I'd say at least 2 of the 3 in central midfield, out wide and up front, have to be addressed. And for me, of that 2 of the 3, I can't accept central midfield not being addressed. Mikel Arteta, you was a centre midfielder later on in your career. Edu, you're a midfielder. In fact, Edu, you need to go to Brazil and get us the next Hendrik, Vinicius, all of these crazy guys, man. So it's a weird one, man. Like ultimately, this season, it's another one filled with promise where we've fallen short. People can say we've bottled it, etc., etc. Again, I think a lot of them people, there might be some truth in that. You know, a lot of these people are either jealous or they've got agendas, but in their hearts, when they're done saying the nonsense, they can see that while we can't predict the future and there's no guarantee of success, Arsenal are developing something great and ultimately competitive. That's all us fans deserve at the bare minimum, game to game. The team's competitive and there's something to buy into, which is there, man. So yeah, man, on that note, let people know they can find you, Mr. Ornstein, man. Like people, he's gonna take Ornstein's job soon, you know. That's why I'm making sure we remain friends. This is my guy. Don't forget the man. Don't forget the man. Don't forget the guys, bro.
So you can find me
man.
at Art de Roché on Twitter, and sometimes I'm on Twitch playing some video games as well.
Hey, Football Manager, Harry Potter, he plays all that stuff. People follow up his Twitch. Everything's in the descriptions as well, man. But go on, bro.
So yeah, that's where you can find me. Don't really spend too much time on other platforms, but yeah.
And make sure you're following him on Twitter, people. You know, you might be on your Twitter feed and there's breaking news, man. You know, when he makes some tweets, I understand. I'm like, oi, David Ornstein Jr., you know. But yeah, people, man, make sure you're following the guy. It's always a pleasure. I'm sure you lot agree and disagree and have your own points of view about everything we've discussed. So let us know in the comment section. Again, check out the description to see all of the links that you need to be following. What sort of articles you got to come out, man? Because no doubt you're going to go over the season and you probably got a busy period with the transfer news, and it must be mad being a journalist at this point of the year, because there might be times you might be in a pub and Arsenal have agreed this and that. You're gonna have to get on the tablets, and that is crazy.
So tomorrow I got something going out on kind of similar stuff we spoke about in terms of the margins that may cost Arsenal. So those Fulham, Tottenham, Chelsea games at the start of the year. May also be doing something on another kind of very keyword, trajectory, and yeah, looking more at the perspective of the whole season and where Arsenal have been going over the past 3 years, I'd say, rather than
3 years. Yeah. The year starting from the year we lost out on top four, I would say that's a fair sample size.
So yeah, and then other than that, probably got some like player of the season stuff to do, and other.
You've already spoiled that today, but
yeah,
it's
cool.
That's my bad, really.
No, it's cool. It's cool. Hopefully, we'll be working on something quite cool. I don't know when on Erdegaard, and his passing. For
no Euro stuff.
I don't know. I'm not sure. So yeah, we'll see.
Man, you gotta get the Euro stuff out, man. Half of Arsenal teams going over there, man. Even Ramsdale's getting called up. Hopefully, Benjamin.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to see. But that's kind of the immediate kind of future, and then hopefully can do some cool stuff in the summer as well.
So yeah, like the man said there, the season's done, but the work don't stop. Make sure you're following, you're liking, you're commenting, you're subscribing, you're checking out the descriptions, and most importantly, man, we hope you lot have enjoyed this. On that note, peace, everyone.